us to reconvene. We're doing really good time-wise. We'd like to stay on time so that our the folks who are going to be coming in to meet after us will need to wait needlessly outside. All on fine, and obviously many of us have questions. We would love to spend more time. But for tonight's meeting, we're still keeping it a 20-minute presentation. So with that, I'll ask for a representative of PGAV to take the podium.
Well, thank you. You all know me.
Oh, you want to talk? Okay, you just want to talk.
Unless you want me to go.
No, it doesn't matter. That's fine.
Oh, that's fine. You all know me. I'm John Brancaglione. And you know the rest of our team, the proposal that we gave you for our staff for the comprehensive plan project in terms of the key PGAV staff is the same. Andrew Murray, our senior project manager, will be the senior project manager on this project as well. Andrew is also the project manager on the DePere comprehensive plan that we're in the finishing stages of. We're very close to being finished with that. Andy Struckoff, who is one of our associate directors. And with us tonight is Dan Bockert, who's a principal with PDS. When we submitted the response to your proposal, I thought it was very important to bring together all of the talent that was involved with the various components that you asked for in the RFP. We believe PDS is the best firm in the area in terms of parks and recreation planning. Their work is outstanding. We have picked up on their work for the city of DePere. They did the parks plan there that we were able to incorporate into the comprehensive plan. And so they are partners of ours on this project, along with HR Green. Jason Dorman, you probably know Jason, could not be here tonight, but again, they've done a lot of your transportation engineering work, and again, that's a firm that we've worked with many times over the years. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, who to Andy, and between Andy and Andrew, they're going to do the bulk of our presentation.
Sure, I'll just say just a few words real quick about our firm. Thank you, John, for the introduction. Thank you all for having us this evening. Happy opening day to everybody wearing red. It was a lot of fun downtown. This morning driving to the office, everybody tailgating and having a good time. It's a lot of fun downtown. This year at PGAV, we're celebrating our 50th year in business. John B. and his peers and his predecessors set a really good foundation for our firm. And at 50 years strong, we're going into our 50th year in really good shape. Thinking about this project and thinking about our past experience, I look into our library and I see about 1,000 documents in our library. We've got 1,000 documents. These are comprehensive plans, and zoning ordinance rights, these are redevelopment plans, these are market studies, these are economic impact studies, projects we've done for municipalities all over the country throughout our history. So I think we bring a really strong foundation, a lot of history, and a lot of knowledge to the city of Crestwood. Certainly John knows more about City Crestwood than a lot of people. So I just wanted to say that real quick, and then I'll hand it over to Andrew here to talk about Crestwood and our scope.
Great. All right, I'm going to stand up. As John said, my name is Andrew Murray, and I'm the project manager for this particular project. I've been working on comprehensive plans for the past 10 years, and this is a part of planning that I feel pretty passionate about. Wanted to point out a couple things about our firm. One thing that we really pride ourselves on is that we engage the public, and we love helping the public vision their community and find out kind of what the vision is that they want to carry on for 20, 30, 40 years. The exciting thing for us is that if we last long enough, if we wait long enough, we see our plans implemented. I worked on a plan 10 years ago for a community, and I drove back by there and I was able to see some really good stuff happening in that neighborhood. And that's really the hallmark, I think, of our business. So I want to talk not so much about us, but I'd like to talk a little bit about Crestwood. So we're pretty familiar with Crestwood. We live in the area, and we care about the community quite a bit. And through the process of us kind of looking at Crestwood and working with the redevelopment of the mall and working in neighboring communities, we've kind of identified a couple areas of focus that we think that we're in the RFP, but also that we feel should be fleshed out a little bit in the plan. So one of these areas is the Watson Road corridor. Right now, the Watson Road corridor has about a 30% vacancy, and a lot of that is because the mall across the street that's been closed for some time is a negative kind of impact on the community. But as the mall redevelops, there's a real opportunity for you all to cast a vision for the area, to get the community together to see what sorts of uses and tenants and opportunities might be there for your community. And this was likely to be a key piece of the comprehensive plan, if the community so chooses. Another area we feel is important to focus on is your industrial parks. And I've got a sort of an aerial up there of Watson Industrial Park. And the question there is, what is the vision and what's the scenario for the future for the industrial areas? There's some issues on the sites, but ultimately, how the comprehensive plan will look at how to look at these areas and bolster the city's image and attract new businesses by improving the industrial parks. The third area that we think is really important is your residential areas. So Crestwood has a really solid demographic base. We've got a really good housing stock, but at the same time, your neighborhoods are maturing, which is both a sort of a threat and an opportunity. And as the folks in the neighborhoods are aging, there's younger folks that are coming in, buying some of the smaller homes, the starter homes, and there's some real excitement that comes with that, and there's some real uncertainty. But overall, it's an opportunity to sort of cast a vision for your community and say, where do we want to be in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? So to that extent, we pulled some demographic data real quick, and we wanted to compare you a little bit to the county and then some of your neighbors. And your population growth over the last 10 years has been pretty small. That's not necessarily a bad thing when you look at Webster Groves or the county as a whole, which has lost population. A lot of this is just due to the fact that household sizes are getting smaller, which goes to my next slide. Kirkwood and Crestwood have fairly smaller household sizes compared to the rest of the county and even in Webster Groves and Sunset Hills. That is interesting because it speaks to the fact that you have folks at either end of the spectrum. You have older folks who are empty nesters, and you have younger folks moving in who don't necessarily have kids yet. So you have folks at kind of either end, which presents some unique challenges, but also some real opportunities. And kind of dovetailing with that, Crestwood has fewer children, folks under the age of 19, although I know some folks stick around till 23, 24, beyond that. But in the case of Crestwood, you've got a little bit smaller population percentage-wise for kids, and you've also got a little bit older population, which goes back to those two demographic groups that I was talking about. And then probably for all of you who are homeowners, this is an interesting slide. So Crestwood, we picked 2005, partially because that's what we had data for, but partially because that goes pre-boom, and then we picked the most recent median sales data. And you can see that Crestwood's kind of maintained the same, which isn't great, but if you look at some of your neighbors, it's actually good. So some of your neighbors have lost value over that time. You have to remember, we went way down, we're coming back up, and in terms of value, and so there's some opportunities there. But I think that speaks to just sort of the solidness of Crestwood, and that's overall is a good thing. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our scope in the time that we have left. So we broke our scope down into two phases. The first phase is heavy on public engagement. We've got a kickoff meeting, we'll review your existing plans, we'll do some analysis, we'll drive all the streets, we'll create some really interesting maps and some interesting statistics, and kind of get the background data. That will feed into some visioning sessions that we'll have with the public, and those will be in workshop format, and they'll also be available online. So we have a really interesting tool called CrowdWrite, and which I'll show you in a second. And we'll also hand out crowd kits. If you have a homeowners association or Rotary Club or any smaller group that you want to take a kit to, they can give their input and give it back to us, and we'll insert that into the overall public engagement. So I'm going to show you a little bit about. Let's see, how do I show you the website here, hopefully. Let me do it up here.
It's on IE.
Oh, is it? Okay. Okay, perfect. So this is just to give you an example of what we did for DePere. This is what we call CrowdWrite. It's an interactive tool, and the cool thing about this is you can take polls and you can give your feedback. It'll have, once there's a workshop, you can upload that information from the workshop, and then folks who didn't make the meeting, or if they were too busy, or if they didn't have time, they can go on and they can give the same feedback that folks at the meeting gave. And these websites are pretty awesome. This is one we did for DePere. There's a little introductory video here that talks about how to use the site. And then as you scroll over, it's all interactive. And there's some great, you can take a poll, give your input on that. You can also hover over the maps, and there'll be interactive pieces to that. And it's just a great way to reach a younger generation, and also to reach even busy older folks who have iPads, because all of us have an iPad or an iPhone. And the cool thing about this website and the interactive tool is that it works great on an iPad or an iPhone or an Android or whatever. And we're really excited about it because it's a way that people can give their feedback, but it's also kind of in a in a controlled and productive way.
I'm sorry, just want to let you know there's 8 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go back here, and if, later on, if you all have questions on that, I'd be happy to talk about that. So the phase 2, once we have all the public engagement portion of the process, we'll be actually writing the plan and the goals and the objectives, and looking at these different areas, whatever areas are identified by the community, whether it's the Watson Road corridor, there's other issues or opportunities that the community generates out of all this public engagement process. And we'll write a preliminary draft, we'll bring it to another workshop, people will give more input on that, and then we'll do a pre-final comprehensive plan. We'll come before you all to present that, and then we'll do a final comprehensive plan document. So our timeline is roughly a year. We've done them faster. We don't recommend going on more than a year, because I think you can lose momentum and excitement. But the schedule, I think, that we put in our scope is for about a year process. Okay, so I just want to sum up and talk a little bit about why it's important for the city to do a comprehensive plan, and why now is a good time. So we really feel that having a comprehensive plan is an invaluable tool for communities, and we encourage our communities to invest the time and also to engage the public in creating a comprehensive plan. And the reason is, as development comes, as folks come to the city wanting to do things, or as you face different issues, you've already engaged engaged your public, you already have a vision. People are excited and united behind that vision, which is sometimes a challenge because you have diversity in your community. And when somebody comes to town and wants to do something, for example, along Watson Road corridor, if somebody said, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z on this particular site, you've got a comprehensive plan where you could say, yeah, the community said this is what we want to do with this site, and yes, it meets that, or no, it doesn't meet that. And it gives the city some legal cover, but also just some direction. And it gives the elected officials, it gives you all an opportunity to say, this is what our citizens desire to have. We really feel that building consensus and establishing an actionable program that can be implemented is really, really important for creating a comprehensive plan. With that, I think I'm gonna stop and open it up for questions. I do want to say, if you have any questions for Dan, he is here as well. We've really enjoyed working with them in the past. And they and our partners, HR Green, will be part of our team as well. So,
I neglected to point out when I introduced Dan, that one of the reasons we brought them into the picture is not just for the parks component, but for the streetscape component. They're premier landscape architects. Obviously, we've got a whole bunch of them in our operation as well. But I think it goes to the notion of having another viewpoint, of having someone take a look at a situation that certainly from my standpoint I've looked at a long time, and so they will be involved also in that component of the work, and that I just want to make sure I got that out there because I neglected to say it the first time around.
are there any questions?
Yeah, I think at this point, thanks again for keeping us under time.
Yeah.
What remaining time we have, we'll just open it up to my colleagues here on the board. Let's see, we'll begin with Alderman Stapp.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, gentlemen. I appreciate your time. You talked about CrowdBright for folks who don't make the community meetings. My question is, what tools and techniques do you have available to use during the community meetings to engage the audience?
Yeah, so what we do is, CrowdBright is a great tool in terms of what they provide us is they provide us a website, and they also provide us with printout materials to use on tables during the workshop. So the tables, the printouts will have different polls, we have dots, and then we have sticky notes, and we give those out to the folks at the table, and the folks collaboratively put down these dots and the notes, and then we take a photo of each one, we compile those all, and then we upload them back to the website.
They're working over maps.
Yeah, they're oftentimes on maps or other
Or aerial
graphics.
photos.
Yeah, or photos. We would rely a little bit on Crestwood staff to provide us the kind of feedback that how they want those to look, and what kinds of questions would be the most helpful to ask the public. And then those go, like I said, those go back onto the website, and then folks can look at those, and then they can give their own feedback. And then that kind of just builds, the process builds through this series of workshops.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? That's Mike. Okay, that's Tanner, so
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
I know you do a pretty extensive analysis of the housing stock. Is there any element of the overall plan and study that looks at, I guess what I would call the economic analysis of our community, household incomes, and those kinds of things?
Yeah, so maybe I'll have Andy answer that question.
Sure, so we'll look at the demographics of the community, we'll take a look at, housing values and trends, we'll take a look at, from a return on investment analysis, so to speak, what parts of the city have the highest economic value from a tax generation perspective, and what tax collection trends have been for certain parts of the city, so the city can get an idea of where its economic strengths and weaknesses are,
watch the trend in renter-occupied single-family units. If you start seeing a lot of those and they're clustered in particular neighborhoods, then that tells you that there's something going on that may need your attention. And for example, in De Pere, that's going on. We have a doubling in 10 years of the renter-occupied housing units. Now what's happening is,
Excuse me, 2 minutes.
small houses on large sites are being redeveloped as infill. And so in the interim, whoever owns that house is renting it until, the market sweet spot happens. They'll put it on the market. That house and lot gets sold, the house gets torn down, and a house that's often twice as big gets built on the site. And so you can see where that's happening, and it correlates to the parts of the community that have a lot of rental housing. Sometimes it means something else, but again, that's an analysis we normally do.
Okay, thank you. And actually, I have one question. This is something that comes up frequently here in Crestwood. We hear from our constituents. I have people that come back to me regularly with this matter about making the Watson Road corridor more pedestrian and bike friendly. Okay, corridors are lifeblood. What's your take on that? I know we don't have a lot of time. I think we're down to about 30 seconds. But I'm sorry to leave you, a little time. But what are your brief thoughts on that?
I think you have an opportunity there because of the width of the right-of-way, first of all, first and foremost. You also have an advantage that you have power lines on one side, not on both sides. You have opportunities for lane expansion or contraction, lane diets for bicycle paths. You certainly have enough room within the right-of-way for pedestrian walkways, and interconnecting those walkways up and down Watson Road would be really an important concept to not only providing interparcel, but for the community as well, tying your trail system completely together throughout the city.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that sort of spur-of-the-moment response, and a good one. And that will then conclude our session tonight, our work session. I want to thank you gentlemen for coming. Obviously, we're familiar with you, but we want to thank you nevertheless again for coming this time, presenting your plan for the vision of the comprehensive process in our city. I will say this, as I had mentioned to the other firm before they left, I know some of my colleagues, myself included, were a bit frustrated by our lack of time here, but we are under time constraints. So I invited them, and I would invite you too, to send along our members any information you think would be beneficial to us regarding the comprehensive planning process. And that can be left in our mailboxes in the city. You just, if you would drop us off, maybe a hard copy would be fine. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we're coming in just under time, so